Are live.
Awesome.
All right. Welcome. Okay. So everybody get a chance to read the case study?
Yes.
Awesome. So my computer kept telling me that the assignment was due yesterday at like 12 something, and I spaced it, and so I ended up handing it in late. I've never handed in a late assignment ever.
You're going for your 4.0 this semester, right?
That's right. He did say that.
I was like, what?
It was set for 12:59 a.m. So I wonder if she meant to set it for like 11:59 for the previous day, but just at the wrong time zone.
Yeah.
So I almost didn't do it last week for that same reason.
Well, I fell victim to that, and so I sent her an email last night apologizing, said if you don't accept it, it's fine. But she ended up accepting it, but I still get docked for late points. But that's never happened in the 3 years that I've been in college. I haven't had a late assignment. So
Oh, really?
The AMs are messing me up too. Like the first self-assessment, I didn't end up doing either for the same reason, because I thought it was due Monday night, and
it was Monday morning.
Probably not. Monday morning.
I
yep,
figured out just do it all Saturday night and call it good.
that's
Yeah.
what I do now.
Anyway, all right. Sorry, I digress.
No, you're good.
I'll keep us on point. So I'm just going to provide a brief synopsis of the case. So obviously there was a minor dilemma in the marketing of a marketing manager, Thomas Green, after being rapidly promoted to a new position, is harshly criticized by his boss. Green and his boss disagree on work styles and market projections. Green believes the sales goals set by his boss are based on creative accounting. I've heard that a few times. And grossly overstated the current market environment. Mood of silent conflict develops quickly between Green and his boss, and Green is concerned that his boss is building a case to fire him.
Which he is.
Yep. And Green's situation is one in which his failure to adapt his work style and fully understand the demands and boundaries of his new position may lead to his discharge. Okay. So, what do we see are the key issues in the case?
Neither one of them is compromising very well.
Okay, good. Brandon, you were going to say something?
Yeah, well, I feel like, let's see, I get it mixed up. Smith's the boss, Green is the employee, right?
Yeah.
Green is the employee, and Frank Davis is the boss.
Davis, not Smith. Yeah. I feel like just throughout the whole case study, I remember sitting there thinking, like, never gave this guy really a shot, even. That was the big issue. I understand why he would be upset a little bit for not getting the pick who and stuff like that, but I feel like he never gave him a fair shot to really even show what he's worth. The question is, what is the issues, right?
Right.
Yes.
Well, it's basically, what are the key issues? Is what happened and why is it going the way it is?
Yeah. Well, I just remember thinking that one point when he sat down with him, which I think was okay to sit down with him and say, hey, you're not meeting these standards. You're not doing this, or this. He sat down with him, but then 2 days later, he sent the email to Miss McDonald. I forget her first name. I think it starts with an S.
Shannon.
Miss McDonald, yeah.
And that's, I mean, how can he even prove that he can fix those things within a 2-day period? Because it sounds like he probably, maybe he knew he wasn't supposed to be doing those things. Maybe he didn't, or maybe he just seeing eye to eye. But my thought is, if you're going to correct someone, the first time you correct them, you say, here's, you go over kind of, here's what you're doing wrong. Here's how this is working. Here's how this. You set a plan of action. But if you don't give them time to follow through that plan of action, how are you ever supposed to build the trust in the relationship?
Right.
I agree. I think they're kind of totally different personalities and work style too.
Right.
And I
Thomas
think
is
that
definitely more
comes-
carefree and more personable as far as he likes the face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
I think Frank is more, this is the way we do things. We do it with paperwork. We do it with, procedures. This is how it's done.
Yeah.
in reality, their two positions should, like with those personalities, you'd think those positions would actually work out well with where they were positioned at if they communicated properly and kind of were able to find the middle ground. It just felt like neither one of them were willing to find the middle ground.
That's how I felt too.
Right.
Well, and I wonder too how many of these expectations were set up from the very beginning, because it sounds like he just let him
Go.
find his own way and just kind of roll with it at the beginning. And then he was like, well, you're not doing this and this and this and this. Well, how many of those things did he actually teach him, tell him, set up his expectations to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I definitely agree. I think anytime, obviously, you go into a new position, you hope there would be some type of training period. And of course, in the case study, it doesn't even talk about, hey, you did this. Now, McDonald's, she did tell him, hey, look, we're going to bring you on. I am a little concerned about some of your leadership skills and being able to do this. Please use those that know, and use their example and learn from them. But I don't know if that's not probably the best directive to take, right? Just say, well, just go learn from them. They'll teach you.
Yeah.
There should be an expectation there.
Well, and especially when his immediate supervisor doesn't want him there and isn't working hard to help him succeed.
Right.
Yeah. I honestly, even when I did my case study, I looked at it the perspective like maybe Frank Davis had told him these things, to be honest. Because from Frank's perspective, it seemed like, and I did mine from the perspective of Frank Davis or talking to him. And so I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt even. But even assuming that portion of it, I still don't think he gave him a fair chance to succeed, even assuming that he did give him those things.
Right. Well, he was already angry, right? Because he didn't have the choice. He was given a marketing manager specialist or whatever it was. And that he didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Well, I think him bringing up in the meeting where they're projecting for next year that he didn't agree with it and thought that those numbers were out of not correct and impossible to hit in front of everyone. I think that kind of also, when he already had a sour taste for him, just made it worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They definitely did not allow things. So if you were McDonald, would you have hired Thomas Green in the first place?
Not without consulting Frank Davis.
Yeah. I don't think she should have. And it was such a huge leap, because it specifically said they're often in this position for a certain amount of time and then this position for several years before they are a senior level position. And he just jumped straight into it. He obviously doesn't have the skills to do it like they need it done.
Well, and you'd think that with him being over him, that he would be part of the interview process, at least one interview.
Yeah, most of the time that is the case.
Yep.
I think one thing that Thomas did, obviously, he was very smooth talker. He went out of his way to work with McDonald's because he knew that she was, she's the top individual. She's going to propel him into what he wants, and that's to move up in the company. And so, unfortunately, that was her time to say, hey, I think all these things are great, but, let's go through the interview process and let's do this the right way.
Just out of curiosity, this is a little off topic, but on the case study, because we're supposed to pick one of the three people to talk to, right?
Yeah, as an advisor. Yeah.
Yeah. Who did you guys pick?
I did Green.
I did Green as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just because I felt like he would benefit the most from outside looking in, as opposed to.
That makes sense.
He's going into a company and into a position where, certain things are established and he's just going and doing whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Davis sat down with him multiple times and said, look, these are the things that I'm expecting. I'm expecting that your calendar's up to date. I'm expecting that you're going to email me these things. I'm expecting that you're going to get me numbers when I ask for them. I mean, when my boss asks for those things, those are the first things I get done.
You provide, absolutely.
I might not like it all the time, but I provide it. Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
Well, one of the comments that he made too, because he had asked him for like the organizational chart for a couple of the companies he was working for, and he said, well, why would I do that? I have it all in my head. Comments like that, you seriously think that that's okay? No, you don't make comments like that. You get the organizational chart and you provide it because you're not the only one who needs it.
No, and it was like the way he said it too, because it was like, why would I? Instead of, sorry, I didn't think about that because I had it in my head. I didn't realize it was a very almost like selfish process.
Yeah. Well, I think he just is so face-to-face conversations. He doesn't realize that a lot of people like to have the data to back up and think about it afterwards too.
Yeah.
Well, and they mentioned a little bit later on in the case that, you know, he's making all these presentations to these different companies and airlines and whatnot. They need the financial data to go to their boards to ask for the money for these things. If he doesn't provide, you know, the financials, the concrete, show us how it's going to make us money, they're not going to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because I've got about 55 employees that work for me, depending on the day. It's about 55 to 70 usually. And they're essentially a sales rep type position. And it's interesting, and not saying all salesmen are like this. My dad's a salesman, but a lot of them have a very selfish type mentality. And I'd consider myself a salesman. I don't think I'm a super selfish person by any means. But it's kind of, they don't think as a team. And so I almost have to do things like, I do reward systems based on team activities, even just to try and help them think as a team, to help each other, to get things going. Because their natural instinct is just my commission for me, my this for me, and it's about me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So would you say those are maybe some of Thomas's values?
That's what I think, and I don't think he's like a bad person by any means, but I think he's just, as a sales individual, you're so used to thinking it's a very, like, you're building this relationship with these clients. You're worried about your job because your job is based on your own individual performance, not on the performance of the team. So I think he naturally just goes to this thought of, I have this, why does everyone else need this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think he is still very focused on the sales numbers and trying to come up with products to sell more things instead of looking at the marketing as a whole. And, you know, that was one of the things his supervisor was asking him to do, was to come up with solutions, come up with plans before he goes into these phone calls, really, you know, show them, lay them out what you're trying to do. And he's so focused on one thing that he's neglecting many others.
I think part of the I just completely lost my train of thought.
That's right. We can come back.
It was right there too.
It was amazing, I'm sure.
I'm pretty convinced it was at this point.
I definitely think they need to find that middle ground.
Right.
For sure.
Right. So what do you think Thomas's goals were? What was his end goal?
Remembered it. It goes along with this.
Okay, perfect. See, I knew this match. It was possible.
God was just telling me to hold off for a second.
That's right. Perfect.
Well, I think because he got the position based on his sales experience and based on his sales numbers and things like that, I think his end goal was to provide high sale numbers again. Like, it's just, and that's where it became a selfish mentality of, he wanted Frank to like him because he had to work with him, but his whole thing was just based about numbers, not based about I mean, not saying he didn't plan for the future, because he was doing some stuff to plan for the future, but it was just all about the numbers, which obviously in a business you have to be about the numbers too. But I think it was just the wrong focus on the numbers. Instead of how can the company benefit, it was how can I maybe get my numbers up a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because you asked about what do we think his goal was. He went into the company looking for promotion. He wanted to be recognized as being young. He wanted to be recognized as being a superstar. He really wanted to, you know, make himself kind of send out shockwaves, kind of, and it goes back to what Brandon was saying about being very, very self-centered in a lot of ways. I think those were his goals. And so he gets this promotion and then he's kind of like, now how do I keep the superstar status? And he didn't know how.
Mm-hmm. I think especially after getting the rejection from Frank Davis too, Because maybe he went into it wanting to be a team player. Like, we don't know that, but I think once he went to his rejection, he went to what he was good at. Just naturally, this is how I've excelled in the past.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I could see that for sure.
So that's a thought.
So what do you think Frank's goals were in all of this? What was his end goal? What did he want to achieve?
I think he wants him out.
Yeah, I think
I agree.
In the end, I mean, the case study makes sense, right? He's frustrated with the guy. It's not his guy. He's had enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you read the surprise ending yet, John?
Yes, I read it already.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
You get to tell us because I want to know.
Yeah, I get to tell you, but not now. You have to wait.
Not
Build up. We're building up, and then we'll drop the bomb.
All right.
So I know we've talked about Green. I know we talked about Davis, but I also kind of want to point out something that we talked a little bit about that McDonald did kind of wrong as well. And that was not consulting Frank Davis. As like a manager, if my boss above me brought up a person in a lower position, I would actually, he's done that before, to be honest. It happened with the secretary position, and she was bad. And I really feel like I gave her a fair chance and stuff like that. But it was almost like I kind of commend Davis a little bit. Not commend him. Commend him is a bad word. He can go about it the right way. But I had a hard time letting this person go because I thought my boss would be upset, whereas Frank was at least like trying to take the actions to get there. And I think it just kind of puts it in an awkward situation. Not saying that she shouldn't have an opinion and saying, hey, I think he'd be good at this, or you should really take a closer look at him because of this, this, and this. But the fact that she just promoted him without any sort of outside opinion.
There was no input at all.
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially when it's, I mean, I could be wrong, and maybe, I mean, we're kind of from his perspective at this point, but it seemed like he thought that he was going to get some sort of input, and whether she had told him that or whether that was just his thinking, either way, I would automatically assume I get a say in who I promote underneath me.
I don't necessarily think it's an assumption. I think that's typical behavior in a business.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a supervisor over a team, you're going to have a say in who is on your team.
Yeah,
And that just makes sense. And I think she kind of overstepped. And I think she took the camaraderie and his charisma and just sort of fell in with it when he really wasn't ready to do this. I think
it was almost like she fell in love with the puppy dog that was in the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just saw it and she's like, oh, this guy is so, he just does this and this. I have some concerns, but you know what?
Oh, it'll be okay.
You know?
In my field, we call them charmers. They're the people that give a really good first impression, but after you kind of look at it a little bit longer and get to know them a little bit longer, you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Yep.
We've all made mistakes. I agree. We've all made mistakes.
I kind of feel like maybe she likes certain aspects of him that she doesn't see in the department already, like where he's so personable with the people that maybe she overstepped not seeing that he needs to improve in other areas. She was just trying to bring that into the team.
Try and compensate.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to respectfully disagree a little bit. I don't know if he was actually a bad choice based on his numbers. I think it would have been better to get him in a little bit of a program where he was trained a little bit more and not thrown into it as fast. But I don't know if, and nothing, this is just my opinion more than anything. I think he isn't, like, he has potential though. I think if you put him in the right environment,
I agree.
with the right situation, he might not be a horrible choice. It's just, it really comes down to how everything just happened all at once and how it all kind of.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
I
How
even-
to accept that, but
I even wrote, I think Shannon, that's her name, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I think she kind of needs to step back and get both sides and then try and figure out how to get them on the same page, not one way or the other, but the compromise that we're talking about, be able to have him bring that data, but do it his way still, but have the data to back it up, or at least have him do the reports. Because it seems like he's not doing reports and on what he's doing, so his boss knows. Have
Yeah.
him do that.
He hasn't been documenting things. And so you know, what's a manager supposed to do? What does he think you're doing versus what you're actually doing if you don't report and give updates? One of the things that I kept thinking of as I was reading it is he needs, if he can't, you know, produce the reports and produce the presentations and do these things on his own, if he's just, you know, the charmer, you know, maybe get somebody on his team or have him work with somebody very closely that can be kind of like an assistant, or that is the presentation person, that is the financial person, that is really that good match for his style.
Yeah. I think the boss needs to kind of step back a little. If he's getting the reports, like have him make the step to give reports to him, but the boss also needs to step back and let him try it as well, and not quite so macromanage or whatever it is. Micromanage and say it backwards.
Macro is
He needs all the management, right?
Yeah.
No, I like what you said, you know, maybe step back a little bit and say, okay, this guy's coming in, he's got some new things. Of course, Frank had been there for what was it, like
15 or 20 years, I thought.
13, 17 years, I don't know. One of those numbers. So he'd been there a long time, and you know, it's the old adage of, hey, this is how we've always done it, so this is the way it needs to be done.
Yep.
Great habit.
I would definitely agree, like what Aaron said, you know, why not have somebody do those things? If that's not your forte, figure out how to get it, because your boss is going to need it.
Yep.
That's regardless of what it is, your boss is asking for something. I always tell my employees, I tell you, I need you to do these things. The only thing I wouldn't have you do is if it's something illegal or immoral. Other than that, if I need you to do it, I need you to do it.
Yeah.
And there's a reason behind it. And I usually explain the reason why I need them to do things a certain way. But either way, I need to get this information somehow. And I think that's what Davis was asking. Hey, I need this information because this is what makes me comfortable with what's happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Thomas definitely didn't see it that way, obviously.
I wonder, do you guys think Thomas didn't want to see it that way, or do you think he was just so close-minded that he couldn't see it that way? Does that make sense?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think he had success, and so he thought his ways were good ways. Mm-hmm. But I think he couldn't see the value in what Frank was looking for. Yeah. You know, and as somebody that tends to be more on the side of Frank's ideals to things, I can understand, you know, how are you supposed to justify your position and, you know, say you're meeting these numbers and do these things if you don't have the data to back it up? And so, you know, Thomas is more the free spirit, more of the fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy. And for somebody that's more type A, that's extraordinarily frustrating. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, they've got to come together. They have to find some middle ground. They both need to give a little.
Especially without having that trust built. And I think Frank, being the guy who would have decided on who he's putting there, would have naturally established some level of trust already.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
I think, isn't it In Speed of Trust? Is that the book where it talks about how, you know, or maybe it was a different article. It might have been the Harvard article we read at the very beginning, but it was like, if you don't have this management style, it's okay to bring someone in this position underneath that does have it.
Yep.
It's just like
have them fulfill where you're lacking.
It's just that connection right in between there that doesn't work out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. So how do you think, and this maybe goes back to that budget meeting, and how does power and office politics come into play? Because I think a lot of it happened right during that meeting. I think it was something that really started to spark the issues.
Well, I think...
Do those even exist? Office politics? Those don't exist.
For certain they do. I think Frank was upset by not having a say and probably was miffed but willing to give him a chance. But then when he's called out and embarrassed in front of a group, that's going to set
I
anybody
forgot.
on edge.
Mhm.
I forgot.
Sorry, what was that, Brandon?
What?
Did you say something?
I just forgot about that. I forgot he did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have definitely set me on edge. I also think from Frank's perspective, though, I forget. I had another train of thought going there, but from Frank's perspective, I think he should have talked to Green and let him know if you've got. I mean, before I set goals with any of my team leads, I always ask them. I do one of two things. I ask them what they think is a reasonable goal, or I say, "Here's what I'm thinking. Do you think this is reasonable?" And I think by dropping that, like a goal that seemed unrealistic on him, it kind of prompted a reaction. Not saying that Green reacted the right way, but I also am not surprised that he did react that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially because the goal was set for his region.
Yeah.
And it just barely started. And he's just like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem like that's okay. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong time to do it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, he got in and just like right in front of everybody, hey, these numbers are unattainable and it's creative accounting. Pretty much saying, man, you're crazy.
Yep.
I don't know. You know, most meetings when that happens usually doesn't end well. There's more anger than anything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things I noticed is after that meeting, obviously Frank did pull him aside and talk to him a little bit about that. But what kept happening was Thomas would go to others and mention, this isn't cool. He's crazy. These numbers don't make any sense. I don't understand why he wants this. And so he started playing the role of trying to get others on his side. Unfortunately, what happened was he was such kind of a hot shot when he walked in that he didn't make many friends because they'd all been there doing it, and he hadn't, he was coming in and doing things new and different, and so he didn't create that rapport. Now, obviously, in the end, I'll share some things that kind of make sense, and you're like, oh, okay, this is how it happens. But that was one thing I noticed was he kept going.
Did they have? Yeah, I agree with that completely. Did they really have any issues before that blowout in the meeting?
Not that I was aware of.
See, and go aheone. Sorry, someone was talking. My name is Brittany.
Oh, sorry. I just say the only ones I know of really were just the fact that he was mad that he didn't get the choice of picking. So
Yeah,
I think he kind of already had something against him, but that was really the first issue.
It's kind of a preconceived notion, but like outside of that, it's interesting that just this one event can really change everything if you don't address it properly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, that was just a thought that I had a little off topic. But.
No, that was right on top of it. I think it was fine. Because some of what they want us to cover is a little bit about conflict styles and what were those conflict styles and what were some of the things that was going on between Frank and Thomas.
I think they were they were very, I don't know the exact words, but they were essentially passive aggressive towards each other until the moment where Frank pulled him in, and then he gave him kind of an unrealistic shot. He kind of he said, you got, here's these goals. Oh, wait, I'm going to say you're not hitting these 2 days later kind of thing, without giving him a fair chance. So it just comes down to a lack of communication. I don't want to say they didn't communicate at all because they were talking here and there and stuff, but it was kind of that my wife's mad at me, so I'm going to go sit on the couch by myself and she's going to go sit in the bedroom and, kind of thing.
Yeah, that works for about 10 minutes. And
yeah. Because go ahead.
Thomas talking behind talking behind his back and going to all of those different people, and those were issues that should have been talked directly to Frank with. He should have gone in, not called him out in the meeting, gone in and said, tell me where you're coming up with these predictions. I don't feel like double-digit growth is reasonable because this and this and this. Tell me how you think that's attainable. Tell me where this untapped market is. They should have had a dialogue about it that didn't really seem to happen. And then, you know, like a 13-year-old girl that's mad at her best friend, he's gossiping behind his back constantly. It's ridiculous.
Snapchat for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I have a 13-year-old, and that's exactly what she does. So more collaboration was needed
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
compromise.
I think too the way they both approached everything wrong, but I think too Frank, when he pulled him in, shouldn't have been like, "You're doing this bad, you're doing this bad, you're doing this bad." He should have been more like, "I appreciate these things that you do, but I need you to do better at these things," instead of just all telling him how bad he is.
Yeah, there was no positive buildup at all.
No. And maybe it would have come out better. And
Oh, for sure. I mean, anytime someone gets pulled into a meeting or a one-on-one, you know, with your manager, and you go in and they just start railing on you, I mean, it's, you know, it defeats the whole purpose. You're there to help build and support. And when you tear somebody down, it's never easy to hear it. So you're going to take offense right away, which is basically what Thomas did. He's just like, man, this guy's crazy. I don't know what he's thinking. I'm just going to keep doing this, or I'm just going to avoid him. If I avoid him, then maybe it'll get better. Or it won't, but I won't get in trouble as much.
Mm-hmm. I want to hear about it at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that we've gone through that and all these things are happening, what should he do next? What should happen?
You tell us, John.
We're dying to know.
We have to talk about it first.
We're still not there yet.
No, we still have like 5 or 6 minutes still before we're at like at least 45 minutes.
No, that's fine. I think, honestly, that one of them has to just man up and have a real conversation about what's going on. Like, that's probably a very blunt way to put it, but both of them have these concerns, and I still don't think they've addressed their actual, like, real concern with each other. It's, yeah, I'm concerned with this, this, and this. And honestly, Frank kind of told Shannon what his real concern is with Green, but he did it in a roundabout way through an email.
Right.
Without actually addressing it with him in reality, or realistically addressing it is probably a better way to put it.
yeah. I kind of already stated what I think with how they both need to, I think Shannon needs to listen to both sides, figure out both sides and figure out kind of what's going on, and in the middle grounds that Green needs to start using more data and doing his notes and reports and everything. But that, what's his name? Davis needs to kind of back off a little, as long as he's getting those reports.
I was really hoping they were going to be able to solve it without pulling McDonald or Shannon into it, to be honest. I feel like it's something that they really didn't need her involved until they...
But she's involved already, so I don't know if they'll be able to without her now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the way that he's documenting his case to fire him.
Yeah.
He has to show, I talked to him today about this and this and this. He said he would do this and this and this. Oh, he hasn't done this and this and this. I talked to him again about this and this and this. It's his documenting so that he can get rid of them. It really is.
Here's where I think while doing that, I still think he could have done it another way, and I don't mean to disagree with you again. He could have, if you email, it's documented, even if he just sends it to Green. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to lose my job or something like that, they wouldn't have to necessarily tell the guy two above me if my boss do this. He could just show him, hey, I've expressed this to Brandon, and here's this, and this doing it. That's my thought, at least. But I mean, it's just a thought as well.
Well, I think he involved her specifically because she was the one that brought him in.
I agree. I'm not saying that in his mind right now, in his thought process of I want to get this guy fired, I think you're right. I just think there's other ways he could have gone about it too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't explain it very well. Sorry.
No, I agree. And I think the reason why he's sending that to her is he wants her to understand that the choice that she made was not his choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that he's having to deal with all these issues now because
she went over his head.
yeah,
Do you guys think that he set an unrealistic goal intentionally?
No.
I don't think he intentionally did it. I think because he was in the position that Thomas had when they looked at the numbers and put up the goals. So he obviously didn't think they were unrealistic because he was going to be in charge of the group that was going to pull them off.
Okay.
and I think there was some other data with other areas that were meeting pretty close to those same expectations. I can't remember if I was reading that correctly or not, but
Well, because they were talking about wanting to expand into hotel lobbies and rental car places, and he felt like those markets were pretty much untapped, and so he was looking for the growth from those areas. When I think Thomas was still very focused on airlines and the kiosks in the airports.
right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming to the close. We've covered a lot of it. It talks a little bit about how can managing up be applied at work. Did you guys cover some of that stuff when you were reading? That was in the
That can be applied at work.
yeah. And what are the principles of power within an organizational structure? How do office politics come into play in many organizations, and how can someone be proactive in managing office politics? That's a big question, right?
That's a hard one. Because usually, that is hard.
Because regardless of where you work, I think that's always in play.
Yeah.
It is.
There's usually always somebody that's trying to get to where they need to be, get to where they want to be. Hopefully, in places where you work, they're not trying to climb over each other to get to that point and beat each other down, kind of like what's happening in this case study.
And I think that's where it really becomes an issue because, I mean, it's not bad to have a goal of I want to be here by this time.
Right.
But once you start ragging on the guy next door or you start attacking them and stuff, that's when it becomes the issue.
Well, and he's also doing this to his boss. This is his immediate supervisor that he's gossiping behind his back constantly. That's going to cause you an issue.
Yeah.
That will get you fired real fast. I can promise you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually it never ends well. And it's always been when I started at my company, my goal was never to just hang out and be content just with one spot. And so when I talk to my boss, I says, really, realistically, my goal is to take your job. The good thing is that he turned back and says, my goal is to train you and help you so you can take my job.
Yep.
It means he's there and willing to help me achieve what I need to in order to fill his position when he moves on and does something else, because he has goals and dreams.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where Thomas and Frank just didn't see that. He could have taken the opportunity to say, Thomas is one of these go-getters that really wants to move up. Why not teach him the things that I know in order for him to make it to the next level? And of course, Thomas needed to be open to those things. And one of the things that points out is that he's not very good with change and being asked to do something different than what he thinks is right.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to do that. So I guess here's a final question before I share with you what happened with Thomas Green.
Okay.
What gospel connections are pertinent to this
Love thy neighbor.
study?
That's a good one.
I just want to take the easy one before it got taken.
I think I don't know that it's necessarily gospel principle. I think of it more of as a character attribute, but I think we need to have some humility introduced in here, for both of them, all of them, really. Yes, we want Thomas to be successful. He needs to be taught and helped to be successful. Davis needs to stop being sour about his, perceived attacks. He needs to show that he's a Christ-like man, a good person. I'm willing to help you. I'm willing to teach you. I'm willing to, help you be successful, because in helping him be successful, he's becoming more successful himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Any other thoughts? Okay, are you guys ready for the finale?
Yes.
I've been ready for about 47 minutes.
Oh, my bad. I know. Terrible. I keep the suspense all the way to the end. Okay, so this is the rest of the story with Thomas Green.
Yeah.
So after McDonald sent her email in February 5th, 2008, Green took the offensive against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed inaccuracies and creative forecasting. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. On April 4th, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved laterally to an undefined special project. That's what we call putting him out to pasture. We do that. That's happened at my job. So, and then it says, however, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in a company, and although he won the battle against his boss, his career was irreparably harmed. McDonald distanced herself from him, and by July of 2008, Green announced that he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA. Says we can only speculate what would have occurred if Green had tried to help Davis work out the discrepancies and problems with forecasts. Perhaps both would have succeeded.
Is this based on a true story?
It's really suspenseful, and I think it should be made into a Hallmark movie.
It probably is based on a real story. I think a lot of these cases are, and they just change names and company names, but the situations are real.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, Thomas didn't change much. He was going to do what he wanted to do. He did what he wanted to do. He got him to believe on what he was saying, and Frank was moved. I mean, he wasn't demoted, but he was removed from the situation. And then, obviously Thomas, unfortunately, doing and getting what he thinks he wanted, ended his career, basically. Because I think once that was done, if he wasn't going to resign, it wasn't going to last much longer.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, you touched on it earlier. They didn't build a relationship of trust. So, yes, when these numbers are coming out, yes, they may have been creatively altered, but in exposing that, he destroyed any trust he had with any of his other coworkers. He's not going to be successful in that company because nobody trusts him.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because what's going to say that they're not next?
That's exactly right.
And they see that. For sure. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything that they wanted us to cover.
I think so. I know this is just me going back, but I think, I know, John, you're in a management spot too. You probably see it. Whenever you have to let an employee go, that's why it's super important why you give them a fair shot to actually prove themselves, because, there have been times before where I actually had to close an entire shift down, just had to cancel it. They weren't doing well. We fired all of them, and that really upset people. And it took a while to build rapport back with employees that even stayed, because they felt like that was an unfair act, and regardless, it wasn't necessarily my call, and I understood from a management perspective where it was coming from and things like that. But if you don't treat employees fair, word spreads between employees, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't know, this is just, since we're talking termination, my thought always is, I want someone to have a fair understanding why they're being terminated, understand and feel like it was a fair thing, that they're not surprised. And I've found when I've done that, I had a kid about a year ago. I was at the hospital. I had some kid that I fired come up to me, and I ran him to the hospital. He came up to me in front of my parents and said I was the best boss he ever had, which was huge to me. And I'm like, I fired you. But,
I fired you. But maybe you gave him that opportunity, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the big key where they're really missing it. Is they never gave each other an opportunity to build trust.
Yep.
Well, do we feel like we covered what we needed to? I think it was a good discussion.
It was a good discussion. Yeah.
I mean, we
I
can
think we're
hang out for another 9-10 minutes if you want, and
Are there any questions we're missing or anything?
I think everything was covered.
Okay. Cool. Then I feel good. I feel like it's a good discussion.
Yeah. So I will get everything posted. I'll just do a brief.
Do it on time this time, okay?
Do it on time. Yeah, I won't miss this one. When is it due? Saturday?
I think it's just due by the end of the week. I don't know.
Monday. I actually think it's Monday. I'll wait till Monday at 7:59.
No, John, post it tonight. It's okay.
I will post it tonight. I promise. I will have a brief description of what we talked about. I think that's what we need to have, right?
She actually said we don't have to do that. In one of the early videos, she did say she wanted the leader to post a summary, but then later she said no. So just type who attended and then just post the video link, and that's all you have to do on that discussion board.
Fantastic. I will type all the superstars. Do you guys want like superhero names or just I could put in quotes?
I would appreciate that.
That would be fun. I could go for that.
That's awesome.
I'll see what I come up with. So anyway, perfect. All right. And I don't know who's next week.
It is Brittany again.
It's Brittany again. Okay.
I'm going to be honest, guys. I never actually went on that and signed up on the things just because you guys had all filled all the spots. So I figured I'll just take whatever weeks.
You get to take all the last 5.
There's 3 at the end.
Okay.
There's 3 at the end because we don't meet week 11 and we don't meet week 14, but there's 3 right at the end.
I'm guessing that's probably like Thanksgiving and some other holiday or
yeah, something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah.
Pick another one too. It's not a big deal. So
easy enough.
Yep.
Cool, guys.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.